In the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Surviving together, victorious. Never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey, everyone. How you doing today? Welcome to the SAS community. Everybody who is either here on Surviving Together's channel, or if you're connecting to us through the Lifeboat, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so happy to be here with you guys. It has been a wild May. I know I've had to cancel a few lives during the week, and I'm so sorry, but these claimants have come first. So work has come first, unfortunately, but I'm so looking forward to today. And it is going to be, I think, a really interesting show. Trauma and addiction is what we're going to be talking about, the connection between the two. Some of this information may be repeat if you've been with me since the beginning, but I think it's always good to reinforce some of the information. It is so beautiful here. I have my window open. However, I also have a lovely green space right outside my window. And if the kids get too loud, if any of you guys are hearing stuff, please let me know. I don't think you'll be able to hear any of them, but I think it'll be, oh, right. Let's see who is here. Ben, welcome. Kristen, so glad you're here. Jadri, I'm so glad you're here. Shannon Smith, Sandy, wonderful. Misha, our own Awakened at the Looking Glass. If you enjoyed that intro, please give it up for Awakened at the Looking Glass. She made that for us. I think it's lovely. I rock out to it every intro that we go. And just, she made it all with AI, guys. I'm still blown away. Every time I say it, I'm blown away. Just wonderful creator. Absolutely wonderful creator she is. Susan Lynn, you're a new name for me, I think. I don't think we have had the pleasure, so welcome. Did I miss anybody right now? Let me go back through and see. Body Illusion, welcome. I'm glad you guys have chosen to hang out with me this afternoon. Jamie Palmer, you are another new name for me, so welcome. I am so glad to meet you. Crystal, great to see you. Diver Ghost, oh, so glad you're here. Janet, you're finally back, right? I know we've been trying to connect and we have not. So it's wonderful. Kim, so glad you're here. Yay. Well, I think that's roll call for right now. We're just going to hang out and chat a little bit before we get going into the meat of this, give a few more people a chance to pop on. I know it's always about 5-10 after before, you know, seems that we get the bigger crowds rolling. And I want to show you guys a few things, a few housekeeping issues before we get going with things too. Steeris, I don't see her on here yet, but she has a new channel and it is about toxic relationships. And her next live is Tuesday at 7. And she's going to be talking about toxic relationships in the workplace and about being outside the workplace and dealing with those relationships. So I definitely will have a wrench. Misha, if you can find her channel, if you could throw up a link to Steeris's channel, that would be great. And I'll try and remember at the end as well to mention it again so that we can throw these links up so you guys can head over there. Sometimes it's easier to do it at the end, because you could just kind of link over and pop and see what she's all about. I know she's got a couple of programs under her belt, so you might want to check that out. Let's see, what else do we have? Ba-dum-bum-bum. I have a very important message. Happy birthday, Dad. It is my daddy's birthday today, and he is out playing with his airplanes, and he could not be happier. So he's hanging out at the hangar today, and I'm hanging out with you guys. So I got to get out there and go flying with him sometime. But today we're here. Shannon, yeah, I know that's why I've been working so much as well. Well, one, we have a deadline, but two, I like being able to pay my bills, and that's what working does. So I do also have another throw out to my friend Dave. His birthday was yesterday, so happy birthday, Dave, belated. I didn't quite make it. It was like 12:02 when I messaged him late last night or early this morning, I guess it would have been. So close, so close. But connected with him, and he had a wonderful birthday. It sounds like he's down with some family. So happy birthday, Dave. Let's see. Any of you guys who are new to my channel or haven't seen one of my lives in a while, you'll notice that my name on the screen is Mac. Good reason for that. We have a lot of Shannons and Sharons out there. So it got a little confusing sometimes when we were talking. We weren't sure who was talking to who. So I decided we're just going to go by my nickname now on screen. So it's just easier. So if you have a question, you could just put Mac or put question or comments all in capital letters. Then I know you're talking to me and that you need my answer. Otherwise, I can assume you're speaking to somebody in the chat. Kevin Hawthorne, very good to have you. Lakeland, Florida, nice. We're warm today. I got to imagine you're pretty steamy down there. Oh, Crystal, I'm so sorry. I hope things will be looking up. I hope things will be looking up. Oh, Janet, that's so sweet of you. Janet is streaming on both the Lifeboat and on our SAS community over on Surviving Together. So I put up a little note just to remind you that, and some people don't realize, when we do these links, whichever channel you're watching gets the watch hours. So it's totally up to you. I'm not telling you to go to one or the other. However, I am going to take a quick moment of silence. Mock, so good you're here. And anybody who is on the Lifeboat, if you can pop over to Surviving Together, smash that like. If you haven't subscribed and you want to, that would be awesome as well. We've dipped a few in subscribers. YouTube's kind of been doing their normal thing. It's like one a week kind of goes away and then they go back up. So if you are subscribed, check your subscription status. Just make sure you're still subscribed. I'll get videos with hundreds of views and like 20 likes. So really trying to get those numbers up and get YouTube to push this out to some more people so that they can so it can pop up in their feed, so some more people will be able to see this. Warm in Kansas City, I bet it is. Like I said, it's warm in Michigan, so I got to imagine any of you guys south of me have got to be warm. I know we've got Tennessee covered. I think Georgia, maybe Louisiana. Joni Cummings, still nice to see you. I don't think that I know your name. That's a new one on me. So welcome. Let's see. What else did I want to go over before we went? Oh, Proud Mama. So some of you may have heard, if you were on the Lifeboat this morning, my son has graduated from high school now. I have done my job. Ta-da! Isn't that it? I got him through high school and there's no more, right? Haha. So no, he is a working man now though, and he is doing great with it. He's liking the work so far. He's a welder, and I expect that he'll, whether it's welding or some other way to be in the trades, that's what his life is going to be. Totally not worried about him making money, right? because somebody's always going to need somebody who, is good with their hands and can fix things and stuff like that. But they do a senior, the welding class that he has, they do a project at the end of the year, their second semester. Last year, he made an infinity cube, which is really cool. I don't have a picture of it, but it's in my living room. But this year, I want to show you guys. Let's see, I got to figure this out again. Okay. Are you guys seeing this? Hopefully you can. This is his guitar that he made. That is downstairs as well. It is phenomenal. And he took second in region and second in state. So I could not be happier with that. Nope, can't see it. Ugh. Okay, one more time. Let's see. I'm going to get it. Oh, hang on. I had two tabs open, and that's why I couldn't. There we go. There we go. Now you should be able to see it. That is his guitar. I wish I could blow it up. I can't do anything about it since it's in my email, but that is his guitar. And it actually has strings. They actually make noise. Pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. I was just blown away when it actually came home. When you get to see it in real life, you realize the detail of it and like how many welds he had to do to make this thing. I mean, it took him months and months to make it, but it's basically like a lot of old car parts and stuff. I have a friend who has an auto shop, and in his corner of the universe of the shop where all the spare and dejected things go, he just picked through it, and yeah, so it was looking great. Oh wow, I can't believe it's finally cooling down in Cape Town. Wow. Yeah, we're just picking up for summer, so I would imagine you guys are just finally cooling down a little bit all there. We had Shannon, where were you? Because I'll tell you, it was early this morning. I want to say like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning or something. And it sounded like my windows were going to crash in. The lightning was right on top of the thunder. And it was intense for about 15 minutes, just really. And I don't know how long it lasted after that, but at least the lightning and the thunder calmed down a little bit. So I can just imagine how it was if you were trying to fly or anything. It is an awesome project, isn't it? I absolutely love it. I know that he'd love to do some stuff, I think, at home. There is I guess he's found a welder that's a good one for home, for either home welding projects or, things like that he could do. I just don't really have the space for it. He'd have to weld outside for right now, and so only in good weather. El Bugman, you are new. Happy Saturday. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Mock, you had storms too. Wow, it sounds like they were absolutely everywhere today. Or this morning, or whenever you had it. Wow. Tamber June, welcome. You're a new name too. I'm just scrolling back to see who I missed. The name of our channel is Surviving Together. And if you are actually looking for us on YouTube, I know that Misha will throw up our link again, and she'll probably do it several times throughout our broadcast. But you'll have to look with the @ symbol, Surviving Together, SASS. That's why we call it the SAS community. Surviving Together was taken. I couldn't just do that. So SAS stands for, if you want it to stand for something, it's Sexual Assault Survivors Support. So that's the SAS community. And we're a little sassy sometimes too. So thanks for popping on over there. Yeah, the more likes we get, the more that we can push this out. I'm eager to grow the channel because it is so important to me, that we reach as many people as possible, especially as many SA victims, SA survivors as we can, to let them know that there's a place for them. And we welcome everybody. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is trauma and addiction, because we talk about trauma basically. There's some specifics with SA and some difficulties that arise because of that sexual component, but really at the base of everything we talk about, it's trauma. So if you've had trauma in any other type in your lifetime, you're going to get something out of it. Check out some of our videos. I'm really hoping, this has been on my schedule for a long time, but June is when I have set my deadline for myself to start recording some videos no longer than 15 to 20 minutes, I'm hoping, that will kind of condense all of my lives. So if I had a live recently that was about kids and porn, I will do just my talk. So you don't have to listen through the 2-hour live that we had to hear all about it. And that was basically about, kids who are being raised on porn, who are being exposed to it really early, and it becomes an obsession and a compulsion, and what they're learning because of that. And it's been in the news a little bit lately too. At least I've seen it up here. So let's get started. Again, if you have any questions or comments along the way, I am going to try and follow along as often as I can. And Diary, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Ben, you're right. Yeah, trauma does limit us, because if we have not dealt with our trauma, we're constantly be going over the same areas, and we do have our limitations based on what we can handle with it. And anyone who suffered trauma, you're going to have ants. I mean, maybe ants, whether you've suffered trauma or not. I mean, even if you have a perfect life, I mean, no such thing, right? But even if you had a really good life, there's going to be times you're going to have ants. And being able to deal with that, can be, is really important. Trauma can paralyze you. Absolutely. It's one of the hallmarks. Not everyone gets that paralyzation, but a lot of us do. And you just can't do anything. You're stuck. You're absolutely stuck. And we talked a little about with I think it was the last live I did, we did trauma and clutter and how that goes together. So if you've trying to declutter your space, trying to declutter your physical space, or trying to declutter your mind, you might want to pop over and watch that video, and that will give you some good information and insights as to how and why that we have clutter in our lives because we're trauma victims. So to begin with, I love this quote, and I want everybody to really take it to heart. It says, "My scars tell a story of when life tried to break me." That's why we're survivors, because we're still here. Life did not break us. So wear those scars proudly, whether they're your emotional scars or whether they're your physical scars that you've got on the outside. They're a testament of who you became today and who you're becoming. And a reminder that life has not broken you yet. And hopefully the support that you've got on both our channels here, keep moving forward, right? Keep moving forward and reach out anytime you need help. So, trauma and addiction. What is the connection between them? Why is it that? I don't know if this shocked you. It was a little surprising to me. 80% approximately, they say 70 to 90, depending on there. We'll just go with 80. 80% of people who have addictions have had trauma, major trauma in their past. 80%. And that's self-reported. So that's not counting any of the people who are like not recognizing their trauma or not realizing that it's the reason that they're affected today, the reason that they have their substance abuse issue. So who knows exactly how high that number is, but it is incredibly high. Woohoo! Yeah, break free of those prisons. That's awesome. Awesome, guys. I'm so excited to see you when you move forward. This community is just phenomenal. I get so much out of you guys. Even when I don't want to come on, when I come on, I feel so much better. You know, it's wonderful. Wharton Whistle, you are a new one. Welcome. Hello, Charlie Hobo. Doesn't surprise you? Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too terribly surprised, but the number, you know, sometimes these numbers, they're just so high. It's mind-boggling sometimes. So, trauma. I'm going to really be focusing today on just the relationship between trauma and addiction. We're not really going to get into the healing process too much, although I know things will probably pop up, people, especially in the comments. So we may talk a little bit about that, but that's not my focus today. My focus is on why do they seem to go hand in hand, and what do we need to do about that? So it's important to note right off the bat when we talk about trauma that there are 3 separate things that we talk about with trauma. There is your traumatic event. So what happened? Were you in a war? Were you extremely neglected as a child? Were you sexually assaulted? That's your event. That is the traumatic event. Then there is the trauma that happens inside your body. It's how your body reacts. And we're going to talk about that. And then there are the effects of trauma. And the effects of trauma are going to be your guilt, your shame, your anxiety, your depression, all of that. They're the effects of that trauma in your body, your panic attacks. Okay? So we tend sometimes to just say trauma and conflate all of those. And they are separate, and you'll see why when we go through these. So traumatic events, what are they? Well, like I said, your what they call big T. Car accidents, near-death experiences, natural disasters, war, sexual assault, violence perpetrated upon you. Those are what we call the big T's. Then you have your little t traumas. They're still the same in terms of traumatic. It's just one is generally a single event and the other is a series of events. So it's the culmination of all of them. So the pervasive, insidious types of trauma, like bullying, parental neglect, racism, these are all traumas that, one instance, it's not necessarily going to affect you too much. But as it's repeated over and over and over and over again, you will have this extremely traumatic response. 2, I don't want to separate physical pain from emotional pain in terms of trauma, because they're the same. And scientifically, biologically, they're the same. They've shown that people who are enduring emotional pain and physical pain, when they look at their brains, the exact same areas are lit up. They cannot tell the difference. They don't know whose is whose just by looking at the brain activity. So it does not matter what kind of trauma that you suffered. the base of it is all the same. And so everything that we're going to talk about is going to apply to you no matter what kind of those traumas that you've been through. Okay. So what happens with trauma? Well, when we go through trauma, our bodies keep that trauma inside, and it's stored in our nervous system. It's not stored in our brain. Okay. And let me back up a little bit. Before I get into the physiology of it, I want to talk about what kind of traumas, what kind of categories, other than those, what do they fall into? We can have emotional trauma, attachment trauma, developmental trauma, cultural trauma, physical trauma. So there's all different kinds of trauma as well in terms of categorizing it that way. And why do some people seem to go through a trauma and seem to be able to deal with it okay, and somebody else goes through that exact same trauma and really has a hard time? Well, it has to do with a number of factors. It has to do with how we individually perceive the event. What is our reality to that event? And that has to do with our cultures, our values, our norms, the social support network that we have around us at the time of the trauma, and our stage of development. Are you a child? Are you a teen? Are you an adult? Because when you're in either of those stages, you're going to be able to handle and process things differently. So it affects all of us differently, even though it can be the exact same trauma. So how do you define trauma? Well, there's a number of different ways. It's all going to be basically the same. I say these because sometimes it makes sense for some people if you phrase it one way versus phrasing another. So first we have, it's when an event causes the brain to rewire itself in a negative way. Or you can say it's an emotional response to something that is overwhelming, stressful, disturbing experience. Said one other way, it's an event that so overwhelms us, we cannot deal with it. We can't control it. And it's really this idea of being able to control it, being able to do something about this experience that is coming in at us, is when that trauma is going to kick in. Because trauma kicks when we don't know what else to do and our survival mode kicks in. That amygdala brain flashes up. It shuts down all the other parts of the brain that it does not need. If it is not required for survival, it is going down. And your fight, flight, or freeze responses are going to come into play then. And whichever one you do is valid. Don't think I shouldn't have frozen. You didn't have a choice, okay? Your brain was doing it for you. So looking back and saying, oh, I wish I had run away at that point in time. I wish I hadn't frozen. I wish I would have fought harder. Your brain is controlling that, people. Not your rational part of your brain, not the frontal cortex, not that part that we can think with and reason with. It's your survival brain. So it's going to do whatever it thinks is best. So doing the second guessing, going back and thinking about that is never going to get you anywhere. Because even if you had been back in that situation, you weren't going to be able to talk yourself into being able to do something different. Oh, that's interesting. Roughly 1 in 5 adoptees have an addiction problem. Interesting. Interesting. Wow. I know you guys will have a whole conversation that I won't even be able to be a part of as I talk, and that's totally fine. If there's something you need me to notice, though, please definitely put something in all caps so that I will know to respond to whatever you guys are talking about. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about our body response a little bit more. So your brain, when I say your brain lights up, it's our nervous system, okay? Our nervous system that goes to our amygdala, that survival part of our brain. So trauma is actually stored in our nervous system. It's stored in our sympathetic nervous system, which is our automatic nervous system. And that's really important to remember, because when we're triggered, when we have something that brings on these feelings that we had from this trauma, that is your nervous system going, danger, danger. And it reacts before you have a chance to even look at it. So you hear somebody whistling, and they're whistling that same tune that Grandpa used to whistle when he came into your room. And your reaction is to flip. You react before you can even look at the situation and say, that's not Grandpa. I'm not in that room. It's a person over there. You don't have, your reason can't control. I heard today when I was doing a little bit more research for this, it takes a 7,000th of a second for your survival brain to react. It takes half a second for our frontal lobe to react to something. So guess which one's going to win every single time? And this is why it's so difficult in retraining ourselves to be able to deal with the situation and react differently, because our bodies want to react one way, and we've got to be able to break that cycle of how it wants to react to something. And that's really difficult to do. I think I talked about all of that. I just go over my notes. I want to make sure that I didn't get anything. Anybody have any questions so far? I think you guys have all heard about a lot of this. Smell and taste, Crystal, are some of your biggest triggers. Absolutely, 100%. And smell actually is the number one thing that will bring back memories. And in talking about our system and how we react and the systems that are needed when we react to a traumatic event, those have to do with memory, timeline, being able to put things together. And that's why often when we try to recall something, we can't say how long it took. It felt like it was ages, but in reality, maybe it was 30 seconds. It's why when immediately after an event, if somebody is asking you about, can you please describe what happened? You may not be able to put it all together. You may just be getting pieces. You would think that you would be like, I just went through this, right? I should be able to tell them what happened. You're a sexual assault victim. You go right away to report it to the police or to your friend, and you're trying to recall what happened, and it's just coming back to you in bits and pieces. Well, that's because that part of the brain that is responsible for keeping time in our memories shuts down. It's not needed. So our brain shuts that part down. So it can take a while to be able to get everything back and into perspective and put it into the timeline that it needs. And sometimes we don't ever get it totally back. We don't ever quite remember exactly how it happened. You may have a a feeling that something happened, and you knew something happened in between this and that, but you can't explain exactly what. You just, you can say, I know this happened, right? So triggers can happen in any of our senses, hearing, smelling, tasting, touch. That's why if somebody is really close behind you, that can be a trigger for you. And you can react very poorly if someone is in your physical space and you're not expecting it. Certain smells. That smell of cigar smoke that your dad always had on him when he came home from work, and you knew that's when the beatings happened. Or that perfume your mom wore when all you ever wanted was her attention, and you were never able to get it. So you were very emotionally neglected. Your needs weren't met when you were a child. And talking about childhood trauma versus adult trauma, there is a significant difference. And that is when we go through significant childhood trauma, parts of our brains don't develop as they should. And it's one of the reasons that they are so deep rooted for us as we go through life. And they're things that can be very young, and then we're not going to remember until years later when we start putting the pieces together of, oh, that's why I do what I do. It's because this happened to me when I was 4. Now I get it. Because we don't always look back on some things and think of them as a trauma. They were normal to us. And they may not be something that we've spoken about with other people. It may not be a subject that we've talked about with other people. We may not talk about ourselves or somebody else in depth with others. We may not have that emotional connection to be able to kind of do this comparison to say, oh, that's not as normal as I thought it was. Or this situation affected me so much more than I ever imagined. Because sometimes we can realize that something was a trauma for us, but we don't understand the full impact of it until A, later in life, B, something happens to us that really triggers that event, or we start to unpack it. And we start to go back through our childhood and figure out, oh, these are the things that I need to deal with in order to move forward in these areas. One of the things that happens with trauma and addiction then is we have this trauma inside us, something triggers us, and our triggers are going to kind of go one of two ways. One is the triggers like the anxiety, the panic attacks, the adrenaline starts pumping, your heart's beating faster, and you're just up. It's all of those types of feelings. So what do we want to do? We want to calm down. And turning to substances like alcohol or benzos, they're a great way to do it. They affect they're depressants. So they're going to calm us down and calm our nervous system. The problem is they're negative coping mechanisms, right? And we get addicted to these substances, and they can cause a whole host of their own problems. So you're picking up one thing to deal with a problem, but it ends up causing more. And Gabor, there's a doctor called Gabor Mate, and I put him and a couple other ones in the link, and you can look them up. They're experts in the areas of trauma and addiction, and the links between the two. And I love his definition because his definition is different from the DSM and it's different from our medical definition. Both of those are woefully behind the times. So he defines it as this: addiction is a complex psychological, physiological process which manifests in any behavior, remember that, any behavior that a person enjoys, finds relief in, and therefore craves in the short term, but suffers negative consequences in the long term and doesn't give it up despite the negative consequences. Now, that doesn't just put addiction, in a round. That is to me totally on point. And it's a lot about what we talk about in the lifeboat about addiction and how we talk about it. So that's why addiction can be anything at all. It's our normal drugs and alcohol. And now we also think of sex, porn, food, but it can be anything. It can be working. It can be exercising. Because when you exercise too much, it's hard on our bodies, right? And it maybe we're taking up too much of our time as well, and we're not dealing with other things that we need to. So it literally can be any activity, anything that's a nice positive. It can be a negative if you do it, too much, if we blow it up. Crystal, you've heard of Gabor Mate? Yeah, he's an interesting looking guy, and but he is amazing. He's done a lot of videos himself that you'll find on YouTube, and he's also been on a ton of other people's videos and contributed to them. So if you're interested in this subject, please look him up. He is definitely one of the go-to people. So we talked about drugs and benzos being able to calm us down when we have those sorts of reactions. What about the other types? What about opioids and heroin? What do they do? Because they're not depressants. People who find themselves where their source of trauma was a lack of love, neglect of some sort, pain, that has to do with the right side of our brains. And if it's from a childhood trauma in regards to those things, that side of our brain does not get as developed as it should. And I am not an expert in this, and I have just a rudimentary understanding. I learn with you guys on a lot of this. And so I'm getting the brain part down. I know Tommy knows a lot more about the brain than I do in regards to addiction, but I know that the right side of the brain doesn't develop as much. So because we're not getting what we need, we're not getting that love, we're not getting that attention, we're not getting all those positive things that we need. And that's when our attachments, we can have attachment traumas and our developmental traumas. And so that's where our receptors are, our feel-good receptors are. And those are the receptors that the opioids and the heroin attach to. And I've taken opioids before for pain, but I've had fentanyl, but I've never tried heroin. But I can tell you I was on fentanyl patches for a long time. And they're 3 days. You have them on for 3 days and then you change it. And that first day, wow. Because you start up here and then you're kind of here. And then by the end of it, you're kind of here. And then you put new patch in and woo, you're up here again. And then you kind of go. And I noticed I would go through this 3-day cycle of that first day, you feel on top of the world. At least I did. I felt like I could do anything. I felt like my old self. I felt great. And that's because it was attaching to those receptors that I needed. And it was filling that void of what I had. So those are kind of your two basic areas of why some people may take one substance over another, because it depends on our traumas and what we're dealing with. And some people have a combination of those traumas. And so they may be addicted to drugs and alcohol, and they're taking a lot of different things. It just depends. So the fact that, trauma is difficult to deal with, and the effects of trauma are extremely difficult if you're not addressing them. So just to have them and go through life with them, it's no wonder we turn to something to make them go away, to make us feel better, to be able to cope through the day, to be able to stop crying, to be able to get out of that chair, whatever you need type of thing. So we go back to that 80% number. Now, is it any wonder that 80% of addicts have some sort of trauma in their past? Now it makes absolutely perfect sense. You're right. Yep, Shannon, Mischief, it's different situations, different traumas. You need different substance. And some of it is going to depend on just your own physiology, too. Some of us aren't wired a certain way, and we're not going to get addicted to something. Others, you take those first few pills and boom, your body's like, whoa, I like this. Let's do more of this. And other people can take them and be like, okay, no, I take them exactly as prescribed. I don't have a problem with it. It's not an issue. Yeah, it's helping, but they don't get that addictive part of it. And that's just that can be down to just our own physiology. Everybody is different inside, and how you process medication. There's certain medication my body just processes through and it goes out, and it really has no effect on me. So when there was the oxycodone, hydrocodone, that sort of opioids, when that was exploding, guys, I could take 3 or 4 of those, and it's absolutely nothing. So I can understand why somebody can get up to taking 14 of them at a time. Now, from an outside looking in, before I realized this, before I knew too much about this, I worked in a prosecutor's office right out of college, and in college a little bit as well. And it boggled my mind that these people were being interviewed by the police, and they weren't saying, hey, we'll wait a while because you've just told me that you took 14 oxycodone 2 hours ago. But yet they sound coherent, they're acting coherent, and for the most part, they can kind of be coherent. Now I get it. Now I understand how you can get to that level. And that's the other thing. And then we talk about this all the time with addiction, is that once you use a substance to a certain degree, after that amount isn't enough, right? And so we have to take more. Or we self-medicate ourselves, so we're taking more than what is prescribed. And then after we get to that, used to that level, we're going to have to take more anyway. And that's when you're chasing the high, because you're not getting that feel good that you want to, or you're not calming down as you did before. Yeah, I mean, Janet, really, who doesn't? Well, I know there are some people don't like the feeling of being high. They feel like they're out of control. But that's why I had my addiction to pot. I mean, everything that was going on in my brain, everything that I had to do, all the responsibilities that I have as a single mom, and trying to get my son through school and support him, and pay the bills. I could just smoke a couple, I could smoke a bowl and just let it go. Of course, I didn't do anything else either. And that made me happy. I mean, you're not doing anything productive. You're not stressing yourself out at all. I was just sitting in a chair reading or watching YouTube or playing a game. And it just just was. Well, the problem then is all my problems were still there. And that is where we get to the healing part and how you have to deal with your underlying trauma if you're going to successfully deal with your addiction. This is where people, they get sober, but they can't stay sober. Or they end up they go back to theirs, or they replace it with something else. Because we still have those feelings. That trauma is still bringing up everything. We're still having those effects. We're still dealing with all of those effects. So it's no wonder that we're just replacing one thing with another, or that we're not able to stay sober, because we haven't dealt with the root cause of why we have that addiction in the first place. So simple talk therapy is never going to be enough. You can't talk yourself out of dealing with your trauma. That's this rational part of our brain. And it cannot tell that survival part of our brain, hey, this is how you need to react. Because again, what happens? It is like turtle slow compared to how fast our survival brain reacts to a situation, reacts to one of those triggers. You're never going to be able to think yourself out of a situation. I used to get so frustrated when I would yell at my son about something, knowing that it's not really him. It's because I'm reacting this way because of how I was raised, because of reactions that I got, and it's perpetuating in me. And I say, next time that situation comes up, I am not going to do this. I am going to stop, and I am going to look at it, and I'm going to say, no, this is not. And I never freaking could. I was always reacting. And as soon as it was out of my mouth, I was like, darn it. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. But it's still out of your mouth. So we have got to deal with our traumas if we're going to successfully deal with our addictions long term. It's just an absolute fact. And so things like yoga, things like meditation, anything that is bringing us into the present, that mindfulness, that's where we're developing our frontal lobe. We're developing being in the moment. And that is really going to help us be able to eventually break that automatic nervous system response. And it's tough. It's not easy. But so anything that is going to also replace that feeling of what you need. Do you need that feel good feeling? You need you need that dopamine going? Exercise, right? One of the best ways. There's sex too, which as long as you're not an addict and you have a good outlet for it, hey, there's that. But this is where people can get into trouble with it, with a sex addiction, because they're addicted to that feeling. I found out as I was researching for the kids in porn video that the amount of dopamine that is released in our brain during an orgasm is equivalent to a full shot of morphine. Think about that. Is it no wonder that some people end up going down that road and just having mindless, sex with people? It is a great way to release dopamine. Again, and this is how people get addicted to pornography. and masturbating to pornography because of all the dopamine that it releases in our system. That's astounding to me. Equivalent to a shot of morphine, guys. No wonder they say sex cures headaches. So if you have one, you actually should be doing it, not saying, I can't tonight, I have a headache. I'm going to look through your comments a little bit as I have been talking. Yes, Mark, it's overriding the program, not erasing it. And in overriding that program, you have to break the first program. You have to break this. You have to break our connections as to why this is going on. Because until you do, our automatic response is still going to be there. And so figuring out something else that's going to give you what you're getting from that addiction is one of the huge keys of being able to work through trauma successfully. Because if you're like somebody like me, I need that feel good. The alcohol, nah, the benzos, not really. I need that feel good stuff. That is what does it for me. That's what affects my trauma in my brain and calms my nervous system down. So things like yoga, things like exercise are the things that I need to do the most. And boy, do I struggle with it, especially when I'm working so much. And this is what I do when I work. I sit at the computer and I read stuff and I write reports. So I have to actively fit that time in for myself and tell myself this is important enough that I have to change my schedule. So I'm going to spend from 7 to 7:30 in the morning walking. And that is going to be the start of my day, or whatever time it is. It's got to be important enough to you. And you have to be willing to go through the hard stuff. Unpacking trauma, dealing with it is tough. It's difficult, no doubt about it. There's no easy road around it. There's no great way to deal with it and say, okay, well, if I exercise and I do this and I mindfulness and whatever, I'll just be able to get rid of it without walking through it and actually dealing with what happened to me. Sorry, guys. You got to walk that path again. And it sucks sometimes. Really sucks. Because sometimes you have to look at some truths that you don't want to. So it's no wonder, again, that we slip into addictions, because it's easier than dealing with the pain of those past traumas that we've suffered. Unfortunately, there's no way around it. And it just has to be, the end result has to be worth it to you to be able to go through this and say, yep, I'm going to deal with this because I have to, because I know when I come out the other side, I'm going to be a better person. I'm never going to be that person I was before the trauma. You never are. You're never going to be that kid who grew up without the traumas. You're a different person. You know, I wonder myself, who would have I been if it weren't for the traumas? Now, there's a certain amount of within the healing process that we have to do in terms of getting back to our authentic self. Because especially when we're talking about childhood trauma and neglect, anything within the family, our authentic self is one of the first things to go, because we need that emotional attachment to our caregivers. So if our caregivers are saying, you know, angry kids don't act that way. What you're saying is angry kids don't act that way, be good. What you as the child takes in is, I don't get love if I'm angry. I can't do what I want. I can't do this and still get the love that I need. And I need this attachment because I'm too young to go through life myself. So anything that's our authentic self gets shoved down and pushed away. So we are never going to be that person that we were before. So we can't say, I'm becoming the person I was meant to be. Well, you're grabbing back more of your authentic self, but you're never going to be that other person. And that has to be okay. Realizing it up front instead of thinking, I'm going to get to that person that I was before I had that rape at 20. Now, let's take an adult situation. You're never going to be that person. Your brain is always going to remember that trauma. You're going to remember what you went through. But I can guarantee you're probably going to be a more empathetic person and a more sympathetic person on the other side because you have dealt with a trauma. So when you connect with somebody and they've had some sort of trauma, whether it was an essay or not, you get it. You understand that level of pain. So that is what binds all of us together. And as addicts, we get it as well. This is what we turn to be able to cope with all of the stuff that is too difficult to deal with, that we don't want to look at. So it is such a multi-step process. And being in therapy, whether it's cognitive therapy, whether you're doing, the EDRM, I'm not sure if I'm getting the initials right, but the eye movement, whether you're doing that, art therapy, music therapy, using exercise. There's a lot of different ways that you can combine it with talk therapy. Journal therapy is actually a whole separate subsection as well. And I didn't realize this. You can journal, but then you can take your journal into the therapist who then reads your journal and goes, okay, do you realize what is going on here? Do you realize what you're pointing at? Because they may see something in the midst of everything that you've written. And you're like, whoa, oh, wow. No, I didn't see that. Because you're pouring out all your emotions about this particular thing. They're able to strip that back and help you with the situation or the root feeling. That's pretty amazing. But that's why it's so much easier to deal with other people's problems. If you're thinking, I give great advice, but I can't take my own advice. We have our emotions involved. When we're not as emotionally invested in somebody else, we can see through all of that and see a path forward. So that's why it's really helpful, whether it's a friend, whether it's a religious authority figure, whether it's an actual therapist, whatever it is, that it's really important that you do talk about it, whatever your trauma is. And as I say all the time, if you're not to that point where you can talk out loud about it, then write about it. But get it out of you. The more you hold it in, the more it becomes like a cancer and it just eats away at you. You've got to get that stuff out. And if you can get past the journaling, if you're not ready to tell it to somebody else, I say talk to the wall. But it's when you get to that point of being able to speak, you're really getting ready to deal with your trauma. Because talking makes it real. Saying it out loud makes it real. I am a sexual assault survivor, childhood and adult. It's a piece of me. It's always going to be a piece of me. It doesn't have to be my sole identity, however. And sometimes after we go through the experience, it really is. It's the lens through which we look at life. And eventually, as we deal with that trauma, it can be a piece of us, but it's not who we are. Yeah, anger, anger is it's a powerful emotion, right? And so it is one that you can express easily. The key is not to direct it at somebody else, right? And try not to direct it in. Just blah. Sometimes I will do that. I will be sitting here and I will get so frustrated with something or just so overwhelmed with something that I will just start babbling, really. I mean, and I am just if they could hear me outside, they probably think I'm absolutely bonkers. But again, getting it out, talking it out, for me, it's a way that I can work through something. It makes it real. It puts it in perspective. And sometimes it's just a matter of getting it all out. Why do you call up a friend and vent? Because you just need to get it out of your system. You're so frustrated at somebody, Thank you for allowing me to spew all my verbal garbage on you. And your friend's like, great, okay. They don't need to take it personally. I have a friend who barely listens. It was like, I found this out like later, but it actually didn't matter because I wasn't expecting them to solve any problem. I just needed an outlet for all of my stuff, all of my feelings, and I needed to talk about it because I'm a talker. And that's why pets are some of the best things that we can have in our lives. That unconditional love. And I know people will argue between cats and dogs. I love them both. They each have their own quirks, so I will not get into that argument. However, definitely more often you're going to have that dog who you could be gone for 4 seconds and you come back and they're so excited to see you like you have been gone for 4 months. Cats, not so much. I mean, there may be some cats that act like that. I know mine don't. They're like, oh, you're back to feed me? But for me, there is nothing more soothing than petting a cat. It's soft fur, the way it purrs, it's just extremely calming for me. It's not the same with a dog. I don't know about yours, but every dog I have, you pet it and they're like, they're so happy, but that's not calming for me. I'm feeling the love. I'm feeling that love. So it's affecting me in a different way. So again, what do you need? What do you go to? Do you go to benzos or do you go to heroin? To me, that kind of is the same thing. Do you need a cat? Do you need a dog? And that's why some people have art therapy. It's soothing. It's a way to get their feelings out. They can paint about what they're feeling. Music, music as well. Aw, that is so sweet. Okay, I'll say the reason that mine don't like come greet me when I come in is because they are my son's cats. And I got them for him. I did this on purpose. And I wanted them to be more attached to him than they were to me. So when he comes home, it is like they could be up here. One could be asleep on my lap and one's asleep here in the chair or whatever. They hear his car pull up and they are out of here. if they're out on the deck and they see him come up, it's mama, 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 mama. I mean, they are talking to him. It is hilarious. So they definitely do that for my son. Um, it'll be interesting when he eventually moves out. He has to take them with him. They are his cats. Moki's a little more attached to me, I think, if you're saying, during the day type of thing, than Tigger is, but they're his cats and they're going to have to go with. And you can't separate them. They're brothers. They've been together since they were born. I would never even think about it. So that'll be a sad note. Janet, you and me, we're two peas in a pod. Yep. Taekwondo is so fabulous. I don't have anybody to hold the pad though, and I don't have a punching bag or oh Jesus, the stand-up ones, the round circular cylinder punching and kicking bags. I really need to get one of those. That I do have enough room for in my house. And you can put water or sand in the base type of thing. I definitely need to get one of those because I need exercise. I need to do my walking in the morning. That really should calm me down and get me going. I've put some weight on over the winter. Go figure, eating carbs all day long. And it does. This is one thing, the focus that you have to be able to go through with your punch, to be able to do your kick properly. You zone in and you can let the rest of the world just fade away. I don't have a good Taekwondo school around me, and that is so sad. So I'm going to need to look into that when I get a little bit more free time. I'm not sure what's going to happen with this job after this month. We're kind of have a little bit of cleanup work. We're not sure if we're going to roll into something else or not. They're trying to get another project for us if they're not going to keep us on this one. I'm really hoping that I do, but we'll see. That's great. Yeah, dancing. You always did better with trauma, got to be too much. Well, hopefully at one point you can get back into it a little bit, and we don't have to dive full in. Sometimes I'm not a dancer, guys. You'd have to spend an entire day to teach me an 8-step thing. My brain doesn't work that way, and it's not mechanical. It's not good with that kind of stuff. However, just throwing on some music and dancing to myself and just letting some emotions flow is awesome. Dance like no one's looking, because no one is. And that is definitely the way I dance. So, you could do just a little bit of it. Ballet is hard, especially if you're going on point. Yeah, those people, wow, their feet, the toll that they take is just absolutely amazing. You dance around the house, then good. Yeah, that's absolutely, if you have something that you love, but you can't get into it like you used to be, maybe you can do something that's associated with it, or, something like it, or a lower impact version of it. It's something physical. Maybe you can't throw yourself back into art like you used to because of whatever trauma you suffered. Maybe you can start by doodling, or just doing some sketches. Maybe picking up the paintbrush is too much for you. Start small. Start small. You will hear me say that over and over and over again on this channel, whether it is about healing trauma, whether it's about decluttering, regardless of what it is, start small. So we talk about decluttering and we say, today I'm going to clean off that shelf. Not the whole bookcase, because that's a little too much to tackle, because my brain just starts to go, well, if I get the bookcase, then I need to get this file cabinet next to it. And I've got all those papers down here that need to actually go in the file cabinet. And then I've just gone through the whole office, and then it's too much. And then I'm back to sitting in my chair and doing absolutely nothing. Paralyzed. So start small and celebrate it. You know, get a coffee or make yourself a cup of tea, or, whatever it is, celebrate. Hey, I did that. And if it's half a shelf, great. You got half a shelf done. You did something. And that's the key. So if you can do something every day or every other day to start, then you're moving forward and you're going to get there. So there's nothing wrong with taking bite-sized pieces. And your bite may be itty bitty, just compared to what somebody else can handle initially. And it's okay. Don't ever feel bad about yourself because you can only do this much. Just push yourself to do this much more often, and you'll get there. They are. And the thing about Taekwondo, Janet and I could talk about this forever. The thing about Taekwondo is there's so many different kinds of Taekwondo. So there's different forms. So there's Tai Guk, and there's Palgays, and there's, I'm forgetting the other ones, but there's several other kinds. So they all have different steps to them. You're all using the same basic, punches and kicks, but it's just how they put them all together. So many different ones that you can do. You can go learn. It's amazing that I could actually learn those fairly quickly. I can't learn dance steps, but I can learn forms. When I came back to it, I had done it as a kid for a long time, and then I came back to it as an adult and had to relearn all of the forms. And I think it was within a month I had learned all my Palgays, and I had learned like half of the Taeguks. And it's a lot of stuff. I was just amazed that I could. So I can take that, but now here's another thing I'm not very great at. Spinning on the ice. You could spin all day. That's fabulous. I was not surprised, but my son was really good at ice skating. He could actually do some of that stuff. He picked it up fairly easily. It's amazing when you try different things, you learn these different skills that actually come fairly naturally to you. I can ice skate. I can get around the rink. Don't ask me to go backwards. I can roller skate, and I can roller blade. Don't ask me to stop real quick. I am so basic, but I could get around. So, and I have fun. So if somebody else is, off on the pond and they're doing their jumps and spins and whatever, and I'll just, go straight line back or just, around, and I'm happy as a clam. So, oh, Janet, there's a reason you're my sister. Mine would be flying too. How freeing would that feel? I've gone parasailing before, and that's the closest I've ever gotten to flying. And just, wow. I imagine hang gliding's, just like it. You're horizontal instead of sitting up. Just such a freeing experience. So I'd love to do that as well. I want to do skydiving, but you're falling, not actually going anywhere. But you can kind of do some things. There's people who do stunts and everything, with it. You just have to make sure to pull your chute by a certain 1,000 feet or whatever. But I would like to do that as well. See, being pressured into doing anything is just going to cause you to be resentful of it, so you stay away from those things. Absolutely. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. My first counselor taught me that. It's exactly what we're talking about. Exactly. And I hope that you guys can understand now or get a better sense, even if you understood just how strong this addiction trauma attachment is and how much they go hand in hand. And just dealing with one is not going to get you very far. And in a way, you're setting yourself up for failure. You really got to, I think that that's where it becomes the white knuckling through sobriety, when you're not dealing with the trauma that's behind it. Because again, they say 8 times, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, there's a trauma behind your addiction. There's a reason we turn to this stuff. Now, some people, maybe it's alcohol, and they start drinking not because of a huge trauma, but they're just dealing with their daily stressors of life. Okay. And their body is such that they're predisposed to be an alcoholic, and they've got a lot of stress in their life. And so they start drinking, and wouldn't you know it, a few months down the road and they're a full-blown alcoholic. That can happen. So that's my 1 out of 10 that I take out of the full sets of trauma. Now, enough stress can be a big trauma in and of itself. That is true. It depends on the level of stress and what you're going through. It can also be a trauma of stress if it's even a lower level, but continual, right? It's just like the neglect. It's just like the bullying. You're constantly on guard. You're never coming down from that. And so that's what we turn to substances for, to be able to bring that down, to not have to be on guard all the time. But there are certain people in certain situations that you may not have a huge trauma behind. Some people skate like they're flying. They do. And, I watch some of those people. You watch the Olympics and all that, and it's, amazing. And it's why some people say they, do anything, they water ski, or they, any of these sports, they see the extreme sports, especially, that really gets their adrenaline pumping, and there's nothing like it. No, there's nothing like it. But I can't imagine, being helicoptered down to the top of a mountain, and then having to go down a slope that's like 40 degrees. To me, that is just, wow. Tommy's been around. He's put out some videos. He's just, he stepped back so that he can look after his mental health and do some other things, do some other projects that he's got going. So he's generally on like once a day. I know he's been on a little bit of a road trip right now, so I'm not sure if he's back or when he's back, but I think you'll see some more videos with him. You love parasailing. I wish I could do it more. It's just have a thing where I'm not in an area where we have it. And so whenever I go on vacation, if I'm somewhere where they offer it, I'm gone. Just put me there. I absolutely. Mister, if you want to talk to animals, now that would be cool too. That would be cool too. I'd be frightened of what some of them are probably saying about the human race. That would really be scary. But yeah, especially like to talk to your dog or your cat. I suppose if it's talking to them and not just being able to hear them, that would be different. Here's why I tried to put my son into as many different types of sports and activities as I could, because I wanted him to find out what he liked. My parents, when I was growing up, they were willing to put me into something if I said something about it. But I was a kid. I didn't know what was out there. I didn't know what I might like. I needed somebody to recommend those things to me. So that's what I did for my son, and he found the things that he liked and he found the things that he didn't like. Um, Unfortunately, Taekwondo wasn't one of those things that he fell in love with, but that's okay. It's my thing, not his. So he's got his things that he absolutely loves and that he's great at and fabulous because he is an individual. He's a different person. He's a large part his dad, and that's where he gets that mechanical ability. He's quite artistic as well. He can be. His dad has some artistic ability. My mom has a ton. My brother has a ton. I got none. So all you artists out there, I applaud you. I'm in awe of you. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler, and it's true. It's always crooked. Here's a great way. Yeah, writing. I mean, that's why we talk about journaling, but writing in more of a different format, writing a book. I know several people who want to write books about certain things. And that's their way of dealing with the trauma and getting it out and walking through it. Because if you're writing about that subject, right, you've got to be able to go all the way through it. Some things may make the book, some things may not, but you've still had to do that walk. So, Diary, I am super, super proud of you. I mean, that had to be extremely difficult, but wow. How do you feel now? How do you feel now that you've been on the other side of it for a little bit? Because I know it's been out for at least a month, I want to say. I could be wrong about that because, my world has just gone, with my work and the things with my son, things that he needs to do with the graduation and everything. So, yeah, ballet, modeling, all of that. Yeah, big time on the body shaming. Um, Big time on a body shaming. Um, there's such a stress to look a certain way, um, and they're so thin. I look at Natalie Portman. I think it was Black Swan, and she lost all that weight to be in the shape of all of the other ballerinas, and it was horrifying. I couldn't watch the movie. I couldn't watch the movie. It was too much for me. So, but it was only the interviews and stuff that I got. But wow, to get into to that shape for that. Anne from Massachusetts, how are you? You're a new name for me. Welcome, welcome. So glad you are joining us from the Lifeboat. Gymnastics, there's another one. Yeah, I put my son into gymnastics. He thought, okay, I can tumble, great. It wasn't something that he was really interested. But some people get very into it. Hockey, anything any of your sports, people find an outlet in that they absolutely love. I have a friend who was a coach for a type of gymnastics. He was trampoline. Those people jump on the trampoline and go 30 feet up in the air and do their flips and everything. Yeah, that was him. That's what he competed in for quite a while and what he ended up coaching for quite a while. And when you have a love for a sport like that, it brings you such joy. And then to be able to coach, that's just even better because you're giving back on something that you absolutely love, right? So it's the best of both worlds. And that's why I love this channel so much. I love what I do. I love what I can bring to you, and I love talking to you guys. If anything that you guys get from this, whether it's something that I say or it's something that somebody in the community says to you, fabulous. And that lifts me up. When I see you guys talking and talking to each other, that's what this is about. And I've had people say, for any of you new people, I've had people say, well, I'm not an essay survivor, or I don't want to talk about my essay. And so that channel's not for me. Wrong. Again, don't have to be a survivor. You can have trauma of any sort, and most of us do. Really, most of us in the world do. Of some sort, we have some sort of trauma. But even so, also, anybody who wants to learn about trauma, learn about SA, how to support someone who's going through it, how to love somebody, how to date somebody who has this in their past. There's certain things that we may go through that it's important for a loved one to understand. And so being here and listening and getting what goes on in our brain, that can help you be a better support person. So there's all different kinds of reasons that you can, show up here, and that this channel is for you. And if you are an SA survivor, you never have to tell your story. You never have to tell your story. You never even have to say that you are one. Okay? Never. Just be here. Use the community as you will for whatever needs that you have. If you want to tell your story, you can come on like I am. I can bring you on. You can just talk about it in the chat. Sometimes people just say one thing. It's because it's on a subject, and they're like, yeah, that piece of it, that happened to me too, or whatever. Feel free. If you want somebody to talk to about it, my email is in the description. Feel free to email me, and we can connect up one-on-one, and we can talk about it that way too. So it's everything from getting it all out to not saying anything, and all of it in between. It's all okay. Really want you guys to understand that and take that to heart. It's a very interesting conversation you guys are having. Horseback riding is something that I did because my aunt and uncle have a horse farm, but they're out in North Carolina. But I always loved horses, and so I love being out on their farm. And I did take to it fairly well. I was more of a scared kid, though. So if the animal did something that I wasn't expecting, if I wasn't told how to handle it, I got really scared, and it was hard for me to get back on. I had an experience where the horse just bolted and jumped over a fence with me on it, right? And it just scared me to death, and I didn't know how to handle it. And unfortunately, the people I was with didn't do a great job of talking me through it. But now that I'm an adult, I think it would be much different. And there is a place not too far from me that you can take horseback riding lessons. So, that's something I might look into as well. We are so freaking alike. Oh my gosh. It's on pre-order. June 6th. Okay, guys. Diary of a Ghost book comes out 6/6. That is fabulous. So again, the more you're on, come join us for our lives and remind me, and I will definitely talk about it every single time. Misha, I don't see that Steris joined us, but I did promise that I'd get her channel up. Could you look up her channel and throw that up if you're still with us? Evie, this is wonderful. You're writing a book about your decades-long essay and abuse, but you're also including whistleblowing about the Catholic Church, Big Pharma, and Big Medicine. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought to combine those other ones. There's a lot of organizations that have taken a hit with this, and, the cover-up. The Mormon Church, there's a huge case with them right now. And they're settling with a lot of people. The Boy Scouts, there's another one, and with a lot of people. What are some other ones that I'm sure there's some other ones that I'm missing that I'm not thinking about, but 3 different areas, huge, um, huge, huge situations there, and the cover-ups and the complicity, decades long, right? So that's wonderful. So yeah, diary, shoot up a link of where you can pre-order that, or at least let people know, okay? So you can we'll get the word out on here. Hey, we support our own. We support our own. And we want everyone to be successful. So if that's shouting out your channel that you're starting, if that's shouting out the book that you wrote, wonderful. We will be here to support you. Oh my gosh, Evie. I am so sorry. Oh, I am so sorry that happened to you. But I will say this, and you can feel how you will about, that's a good way of putting it. I've never heard that, pregnancy deletion. To have a 10-year-old body go through pregnancy, physiologically, it's incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult. Your bones just aren't made for it yet. And I was watching a thing with a doctor who was talking about this because they were talking how often this happens in the Romani culture. They have a lot of 9, 10, 11-year-old moms, and how hard it is on them, and how dangerous it can be, and the damage that it can do, permanent damage for later in life, to your body, being pregnant and carrying a pregnancy through at that young of an age. So, oh, speaking of ones, guys, can we throw up a huge set of ones for Matrix Rabbit? He, to my knowledge, was supposed to go home today. No, he did go home. He did go home. He shot me a picture. He did go home from the hospital. He had some work with his heart. He had a procedure done for his heart. He's doing well, but he's got a long recovery road. A lot of things that he has got to do differently to make sure that that heart stays good and strong. So, not sure if he's out, if he's listening out there. If you are, or if you listen on replay, we wish you well, and we'll be here to support you as well in all of your struggles of everything that you need to go through to get to where you need to be. Oh, Crystal, I can imagine. I can only imagine. I know how painful it was when I was 11 and mine were doing it just because of nature. I have extremely wide hips, what they call really good birthing hips, right? And when I was 11, I grew like 3 inches, and my hips went from here to there. And I had these enormous stretch marks on my hips, on my sides, that developed over a few months over the summer. I can only imagine how painful it would be, for your uterus to be expanding inside and your hips to be going. It's heartbreaking that you had to go through that. And I'm so sorry. And this is what it means to be the community, because we get it. In any kind of trauma we're gonna get. So, to let you guys know, I am contemplating doing a third. I know I haven't even gotten 2 lives a week. Normally I go Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern, so that's 4 Pacific. I am thinking about doing a Sunday as well, because I know that I can at least do the weekends. And I'm thinking maybe about an earlier morning, although I know people a lot of times go to church and stuff, so I'm not sure. I'm thinking maybe switching Saturday to early and then doing 3 or 4 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Let me know your thoughts. Put your thoughts in the comments after the video ends. You're gonna have to wait like 30 seconds to a minute to be able to leave a comment. That helps the algorithm as well. Anytime you, even on replay, if you listen and then can throw a comment, and even if it's just like, hi, listen, or whatever, the algorithm counts that. So it really helps me too. And it gets me the information because I want to do what is best for you guys and what you want. And I have a ton of content still to go over, and more that we can do that works really well with the lifeboat and with addiction. Um, we can talk in detail another time about how do we break this automatic response. How do you deal with that? And really, it's going to be a lot of the same ways that are going to help with your addiction as well. If you're still going through it, or you're sober but you're white knuckling it, and you haven't gotten to that cruising point yet. The ones, El Bauman, the ones are just hugs, love, prayers, thoughts, however you want to phrase it, that we're thinking about somebody. We're sending them good juju. So it's our way of saying, hey, we're thinking about you. We love you. We wish you the best, all that kind of stuff. So whenever anyone's sick or in the hospital or going through a really rough patch, we'll generally throw up some ones so that people know that we're thinking about them. There you go. Healing, love, light. That's a wonderful way of saying it too. Yeah, those are 3 actually. Love I mentioned, but healing and light. Those are. I love that. I love that. That's great. Well, I've gotten through what I wanted to get through today. If there's anything else that you want to talk about, if there's something on your mind, if you're going through something, please shoot it up. This can be just like I need a meeting, and we love to talk about anything that you guys have. I think it's really important to look back. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to do. Shoot. Okay, so I did a whole video on this, and you can look it up, and it's about childhood abuse. And there was a study, and it's called the ACE study, and they asked 10 questions, just 10, and you just yes or no, okay? You guys can keep ticks for yourself, okay? And you can see how many yeses you have. And what they did is, ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And then they started correlating this to how likely you might be to end up in addiction, how much likely you might end up having a heart attack. So they did both physical and emotional type things. And there's been many studies since then. These questions have been tweaked. They've been changed to fit somebody's, an area that they are in. Philadelphia did one, I know, specifically for Philadelphia. So they tweaked things a little bit. And so they had some different answers and some different percentages because they were just looking at Philadelphia. This study did about 75,000 people that they had. And I'll tell you the numbers after we get through this. And you do not have to reveal your number, okay? Don't have to reveal it, but I'll go through some of what the numbers indicate. And you can look in your own life and see, hey, did this happen? Or how likely are you? So first off, we're going to talk about abuse. Did you suffer physical abuse? as a child? Did you suffer emotional abuse as a child? Did you suffer sexual abuse as a child? Okay, those 3 abuse. Then we go to neglect. So there's emotional neglect. So you're going to have to separate that in your mind as to the level of, how bad things were, whether it was neglect or whether it was abuse. One's more passive, one's more active. So physical neglect and emotional neglect. Did you have either one of those? Your needs weren't being met. Did you witness domestic violence within the home? Whether it was your parents or step-parent or your mom and a boyfriend or, whatever it was. Did you have a parent who was incarcerated, who went to jail or prison for any length of time? Did you have a parent who was addicted to a substance or just dependent? So they did a lot. So any substance abuse, substance dependency in one of your parents, in one of your caregivers that you were with daily. So when I say parents, if you had a father but you never saw him, that doesn't count. Okay, you're not counting because you're not having experiences with that person. And the last one, were your parents separated or divorced? So those are the 10 questions. Add up your yeses. I tell you, when I did this, I broke down in tears. More because of my child than me. I added up my child's score and was horrified. And it made me want to be a better parent. And it opened my eyes to some things that then I knew, he needed to know about. Because these are only likelihoods. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. So if you know and you're aware, then you can do something about it. So a score of 4 or more, you're 500% more likely to become an alcoholic. 500%. And that's just 4. At 4, you're over 1,000% more likely to be addicted to opioids. Wow. And those were the new ones that I learned about. I've got my old ones, and I need to look them up again, actually. Here we go. A score of 4 more, you're also 4.5 times more likely to suffer from depression. 12 times more likely to become suicidal in your life. And what was really telling with this study is that 1 in 11 had a score of 6 or more. 1 in 11. Wow. Out of 75,000 people. That's a lot. That's a huge chunk. I'm trying to find if I've got any more of my if you have a score of 6 or more, you can expect that your life expectancy will decrease by 20 years. Now, I know that there's been new studies that have done the same thing. They're ACE studies, but they're newer. This was from 1995. Oop, cat. So I'd be interested to see with those if the numbers have changed. But that's astounding. So you think about that, and I think for me, it was a wake-up call. Like I said, more for my son than it was for myself. But it definitely, I didn't write down the ones they had, how many times it was for heart disease and all of that kind of stuff. And I didn't write that down, or if I did, it's not in these notes. It's in another separate notes that I think I probably don't have anymore. Yeah. So I want to just go through that with you. If you want to look up the ACE study, just ACE, ACE, and type that into YouTube, and you'll find all sorts of stuff if you want to look at the studies that have been done with that, or just people talking about the studies and the correlations between both health and emotional factors. So I won't ask how you did, but there you go. I hope that it at least opened your eyes maybe to some things that we don't think about. We don't realize how much these traumas in our life affect us long term. Because a lot of this stuff, we are talking long term. It was, I don't remember what the percentage was of people who would die of heart disease. It was a huge percent if you had a score of like 6 or more, I think. And just realizing that and going, okay, well, why? Well, it's because a lot of people with these traumas, if you don't deal with them, they end up having negative coping mechanisms. What kind of negative coping mechanisms do they choose? Drugs, alcohol, food, whatever. How does that affect your body long term? And so on and so forth. And you end up with these diseases or conditions that are going to shorten your lifespan. So it's a domino effect as it goes along. So again, if that doesn't tell you how important it is that we deal with our traumas and walk through that pain. Because if we don't, there is so much negative that can be waiting for us down the road. And you don't want that. You absolutely don't want that. I was just talking to a friend this morning about, my son's a welder, about certain things that can go wrong with the welding. And while at the time they don't hurt or they don't really seem to faze you, the cumulative effect of this 20 years down the road, health-wise, is incredibly significant. It's like those of us who grew up with Hawaiian tropic oil or baby oil, and we basically fried ourselves and we turned over when the radio told us to. Do you guys remember the radio coming on and saying, all right, all you sunbathers out there, it's time to turn over. They had to remind us of everything. It was like the 10 o'clock, do you know where your kids are reminder. I've got brown spots, age spots now on my arms and my legs from that. Didn't come out until about 5 years ago. So, when I was about 45 or so. So these things that we do or don't do when we're young and taking care of ourselves can manifest much, much later in life. And so if you're at the point where they're manifesting now, we need to deal with them. If you're younger and you have these traumas and you deal with them and you go through it and you're on the other side and you're more positive, you are so far ahead of the game. Because I'll tell you, walking through my traumas, and I'm still doing it. My first video, when I went live, I said, I'm walking this path with you because I am. I am decluttering. I am still getting my life together. I'm still being able to put all the pieces in the right place and handle all the responsibility that I have and not freeze, not get that paralyzation. No ostriching. Is that a word? I think I just made it up. But so I'm walking this with you and I'm going through it. I want to feel joy for life. I want to love getting up in the morning because I know what I'm going to do that day. I'm just excited to do it. My family doesn't laugh a whole lot. And the jokes that they do tell are more my brother's taste than mine. So I didn't grow up with a lot of laughter. I grew up with a lot of yelling. So for me, when I am with somebody and I am just laughing to beat the band with that person because they make me feel that way and I feel that joy, it reminds me what's out there. My friend David can do that. We can be talking for 5 minutes and I'm rolling on the floor laughing, and so is he. And that helps me so much. I love it every time we get a chance to chat. So if you have friends like that, hold on to them. Connect with them when you need. If you don't have people physically, in your area, that's why these connections are so important. Because we need to be able to relate with other people. We need people to be able to understand where we come from and what's going on with us. That support is so critical in healing and walking through our traumas. Because you can be on the other side and still at one point, something boom, brings it back and you may have a bad spell. And it's so wonderful to know you can come here and you can talk to people who get it. Or you can come here and talk to people about golf or gymnastics or whatever else you want. It's a wonderful community. This SaaS community is so fabulous. We're growing, but we're not growing at a huge speed. So everyone is just really enveloped in the fold. And I could not be happier. I could not be happier. Mock, you beat a lot of the odds. I am so happy for you. I know somebody else like that as well. And in regards to childhood, now they've had some unfortunate adult experiences, but in terms of childhood, they had it pretty good. And some people it is, and kudos to them. But again, these are just more likely to. It's not going to be an end result. But if you don't deal with your addiction, if you don't deal with the trauma, yeah, you're going to fall in that more likely category a lot easier because of the domino effect that happens from the trauma to the coping and on. Mock, you went to the tea store. What did you get? I have to know. What did you get? Because I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous I can't even stand it. Vic, it's so glad to have you. So glad to have you. Chris, hey, how you doing? It's wonderful you guys got here. Hey, I'm going to say this again. Remember, smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't, please. Um, and if you are subscribed, check your subscription status because the numbers have been kind of going a little funky this last week. So just check it. Make sure that your your bell. Make sure your bell is still on all as well. That can change. Mine does. It changes all the time, and I don't change it. Of course, YouTube says they don't either, but maybe their AI is going wild or something. Hi, Kristen. Hey, lurking's fine. I was speaking to somebody today about lurking. They would be new to the channel and want to just kind of check it out and see what it's about, see what we talk about, get a feel for the community, right? Before they, jumped in the chat at all or, popped their head up. And I let him know about our lurker community. That was a new phrase for him. Didn't know it, but yeah, love our lurker community. Absolutely. Because chatting's not for everybody. It's not. And that's okay. I do like knowing you're out there. So if you are a lurker and you want to just say hi and that's it, that'd be great. Because then I can say hi back to you and know that you're out there listening. That's perfect. But if that makes you uncomfortable, it's okay too. That is okay too. I'm just glad that you're listening. Cheryl, wonderful. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you listened. If you guys have any ideas for future videos, things that you want to talk about, please either put them in the comments or email me. I have a huge list still that I want to go down, but when people do that, I can pull some to the top of the list. And that way I know that's something that's on your mind. And I'll get up there. I still introvert unite. Absolutely. Oh, okay. Red Bush chocolate, strawberry cream, mate vanilla, toffee cream, black tea cinnamon, and black tea whiskey cream. Oh, yum. For those who don't know, Mark is in Germany, and he has this tea shop that he goes to every other week, and it's an artisan tea shop, and they make their own, I think, putting different things together, and this is the result. That toffee cream sounds phenomenal. That black tea cinnamon, they all sound good. Oh, you'll have to let me know how they are. I think you said you've had some of these ones before, I'm pretty sure. But love it. Oh, love it. Me too. That's why I couldn't say hi to every one of you on the lifeboat this morning because there's so many of you I wanted to say hi to. It was the whole crew. I know I've been pretty much MIA since I started this job. It's a mass tort case with people with a lot of claims, and I've loved every minute of it. And I haven't gotten to talk to all the claimants, but the ones that I have had a chance to speak to, it's been a great experience. And I'm just hoping this job continues. And there's another job that's similar to it that out of California, and I'm hoping to get my name thrown into that, and maybe we'll see what happens. Maybe that we can, maybe I'll get that. Tea saved you from childhood trauma screwing you up. Wonderful. Wonderful. I said Mark inspired me to see if we have anybody around here who does anything special with teas. I know probably in Ann Arbor, which is a couple hours away, maybe an hour and a half away. It's where the University of Michigan is. I mean, incredibly progressive. They, you know, if you want something that's artisan or, you know, all that stuff, that's probably where you'd find it. And I think that I think I'm gonna go visit Jen soon, and she's on the other side. And um, yeah, let's throw some ones up for Jen too. If you guys know Jen Marie, she's going through some difficult times, and she could certainly use our love and our thoughts and our prayers for her too. So uh, if you've noticed her absence, that's why she's just going through some stuff. But she will be back. She will be back eventually, and just like I will be back more often. I am determined to get my Wednesday live in, though. I'm going to start work earlier, and we might actually even be done by then. So, but Wednesday at 7, definitely I'm going to get that in this coming week. And let me know if you guys would watch on a Sunday. And if you would want that earlier in the day or later in the day. That would not surprise me, Kristen, if Jen was in Cricket's chat. I know that her schedule gets a little wonky, and she can be up pretty late. I know she mods for William Good, the Streets LA. She mods for that too, and they go pretty late because they're on the other coast from us. So I know you have a huge tea culture. It's amazing. I had a gold rope necklace, and unfortunately it got lost. I had it since I was 16 that my dad bought in Germany for me, actually in Stuttgart. And I promised myself one day I'd get back there and replace it. So I need to replace my chain. One of those twisty rope chains, and I rarely took it off. Surgery is about the only time. Diary you'd watch? Great. Anytime. Okay. I never know what percentage of people we have who either go to church or have a breakfast ritual, or something like that in the morning. So I'm thinking maybe like 11ish, and I know that would be like 8ish Pacific time. So it'd be kind of early Pacific, but it wouldn't be 5 a.m. early. So 11 to 1, somewhere in there, maybe. I know we've got a lot of Australians who tend to watch on replay because this time is not as conducive for them. So might be changing it that way would encourage some people to come up. You're up at 3 a.m. Well, I was up at 4 a.m. since last Wednesday. My son started his new job. It starts at 5 a.m. So we had to get up at 4 so he could leave by 4:30. And this is a boy who can sleep through 3 alarms. Literally, I've gotten him up for school before. I have called him. His phone's been ringing. I'll call him like 4 times. Nothing. And I will go down and find him just passed out on his bed. And every alarm is going off. His phone alarm is going off. His Google alarm's going off, So I was a little worried about this. So I said, okay, for the first week, and it ended up being a week and a half, I'll get up, make sure you're up. He did fabulous, guys. He did fabulous every single day. He either before I called him, I had a message, I'm up, or if I called him, he's like, yep, I'm up. And I was like, So I'm so proud of him. I think he's getting used to that schedule. He's home by like 2:30, and that he's kind of used to that from school. That's about the time that he'd get home. Granted, he goes to bed at like 7, 8 now. He's one of those people, 9 o'clock at the latest. But yeah, it's great because he's got all afternoon and early evening to be able to do stuff, and it works really well for him. So and with Kristen, you had a special alarm for deaf folks vibrating to wake you up and flashing lights. Yeah, I think that might be something if he goes back to his old ways, if he gets too into it, then we might have to do that. But it wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. The unfortunate thing is the cats thought because it was 4 a.m. and that I woke up, I tried to go back to sleep until 6. They thought that they could get fed at 4. And I was like, no, because you're going to be bugging me at like noon to eat again. You don't eat again till 4. So no. But they got me up by 6 anyway. By 6, they're like, okay, you've slept long enough. It's time to be fed. So I'm up between 6 and 6:30 every day, whether I want to or not, whether my alarm is set or not, because that's when I normally got up to get my son off to school. Even when he could take care of himself and get himself off, I always like, saying goodbye and making sure that, I've seen him off. Just as important to me. Elbauman, bye. Have a great day. Rick, have a great day. So glad you guys joined us. Please, on the Lifeboat and on Surviving Together, though, if you could smash the like button over on my channel, if you're watching from the Lifeboat, hop on over and smash it. It's going to be at Surviving Together SASS. That's how you find it on YouTube when you're on YouTube. And I'd really, really appreciate it. We are creeping up. We've still got a long way to go to get to the 1,000 subscribers and the 4,000 watch hours. But guys, we are almost to 700 watch hours. That's amazing. That's amazing to me. And I'm thrilled. And I couldn't be happier. I could not be happier. So, almost a fourth of the way there. I think that's wonderful. Cheryl, same. You want to sleep in and the cats are getting you up. Yep, they're just. I saw this hilarious sign. I'll try and get it pulled up here one day and I'll share it with you guys. But it just says there is no snooze button on cats. I loved it because it is so true. I can yell at mine enough. If I tell them to lay down, if I repeatedly like 6 times, sometimes it's always Moki. It's always Moki. Tigger just waits because Moki would be the annoying one. He may lay down for about half an hour. That's max. And then he's like, no, that's it. You're up. It's going up. So, at least you get to sleep in a little bit now. Sorry, guys, I have to check this. It's make sure it's not emergent. My son's not home, so I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have emergency. It always makes me nervous. My dad's out at the hangar. He has an airplane out there, and I never know if he's going to go flying on a particular day. And he's also building an airplane. He goes out there 2 days a week, Fridays and Saturdays, and sometimes, Sunday. That's his love. He loves flying, and I could be happier that he's doing this. I think it is keeping him younger by having a love, something that you just are hobby to be able to do. They always say as you get older, you retire and you need something to replace that. If you don't, you just kind of wither away. And I'll be so interested when this plane gets done. I have not seen it recently. I've only seen it when it was just beginning, and so it was just parts everywhere. But I know he's done a ton of work on it, and I need to get out there and see it. But it's about 45 minutes away from here, so I have to plan the afternoon to do that. All right, guys. Well, I have to get in the shower, and I promised my friend that I would meet. We haven't gotten together for a while, so I'm going to sign off today. Thank you, thank you, thank you all for being here, whether it was on the Lifeboat or whether it was on my channel, Surviving Together. I will be here, I promise, Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm not 100% sure what my topic is going to be. I owe you love bombing, and I also owe you child on child essay within the family. and then also just talking about SA within the family in general, because some of the dynamics end up being the same as well. Because there's a different set of dynamics that you got to deal with when you've got in the family versus, being somebody who's a family friend, or an uncle who at least doesn't live with you. Different set of circumstances. So 2 things that I know I owe you. I've been trying to do some topics that I've been getting questions on recently, and so that's why the porn kind of popped up. And I wanted to do this trauma one because I wanted to get linked with you guys again. Been a while since I had gotten linked up with the lifeboat. So again, anything you want, either email me or drop a comment. I always read the comments, and I hope you all have a great day and a great weekend. Happy Memorial Day, a long weekend for all of those in the US. And I'm going to be working though, but that's okay. But please remember, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are strong, you are loved. Surviving together, guys, never alone. Bye bye. Have a great one.